Did you know that animals are highly spiritual? They pray, meditate, they have spirit guides, they are reincarnated, they do all kinds of magical practices. And the reason that they do that is because it's perfectly natural to be magical. So, if you would like to hear a little bit about how to incorporate animals into your magical manifestation practice, then stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Charmed Life YouTube channel. My name is Tricia Carr, and I'm your host here. I'm a spiritual teacher and an animal telepath. I'm actually do a lot of other things, but those are the kind of most pertinent ones for this particular video. As I mentioned in the beginning, animals do reincarnate. And so I want to share a little information about how you can actually work with your animals for magical manifestation practices by tapping into reincarnational cycles. Now, before I get into that, I would love to invite you to like, subscribe, share, comment, and click the little bell so you get the notifications for when I publish videos like this and all on other kinds of spiritual metaphysical topics. And I also want to mention that I have a playlist about animals, animal communication, animal magic, and all of that kind of stuff. I will have that linked here for you. You can check that out. And also linked below is a podcast that goes a little more extensively into animals as your familiars in your magical craft or in your manifestation practice. Well, let's get into the topic for this video. I said, animals pray and they meditate. Sometimes we think that especially our dogs and cats are napping the day away, birds too. We just think that they just sleep so much. And sure, that's true. They're resting. But in fact, they're doing a spiritual practice. They're really they could be in lighter states, which is essentially, it is meditation. And I know that cats, especially, I haven't researched this about other animals, but cats have more alpha brain waves, a lot more than humans. And when we're in the alpha brainwave state, for us, that's meditation or that's daydreaming, which is a kind of meditation and hypnosis. And so essentially, in that relative sense, they're always kind of meditating or they're always kind of tapped into the psychic realm in a way that we aren't as frequently or as typically, I should say. So anyway, they do, but they also pray. One of my cats, Delilah, she is kind of my prayer warrior. And I will ask her to pray for a situation. And sometimes she'll rebuff me and say, yeah, you didn't come to me with the right energy about that. So go and adjust your request because that's not the right way to pray. Because maybe my energy's off. I'm a little bit too I'm not in the belief of something coming to pass, or I'm not unconditional enough about it. So those are some things that you can do. And I actually want to say that a big part of the inspiration for this episode, well, there's two things. One is that as I'm recording this, we as in the Lightshine Academy, we're just about to release a 2-day workshop on witchcraft workshop. And I'm co-teaching it with Stephanie C. Weinman, who is an eclectic, amazing witch and a kitchen witch as well. And so we're going to be doing that workshop on the 30th and 31st of 2021, but it's also going to be on demand after that. So if you're listening at some other time, check the description for that link because you might be able to kickstart your craft practice with us. Insofar as the reincarnation, if we're looking at our past lives, if you are a spiritual seeker, if you are a practitioner, you may have, like me, uncovered a life in which you were persecuted for what they called, at the time, if it's at a certain time period, persecuted for being a witch. And that was a pejorative. It was something that was created by the church and state that were one then. And there was a lot of dogma. There was obviously a lot of repression of women and just anything that had to do with something that wasn't controlled by religion and state. And one of the things that many of these people, especially women, but there were definitely also men who suffered by persecution. But these women one of the things is you could be persecuted, you could be even assassinated because you had animals as friends, And so that was one of the very first life that I uncovered after my spiritual awakening was being persecuted and burned at the stake for being a witch. And the way my story went is that it was in like a kind of an area of Europe. I'm I'm just going to leave it at that. And I was a 27-year-old woman, and I hadn't married, and I lived alone except for, without any other humans. And I was, an herbalist and basically kind of a shaman for whatever the right word would have been in that language and that culture. And I had a ton of animals, of course. And so in that life, actually, besides the herbalism, besides the crafting that I did and having animals that I was close to, it was really that I was 27 and unmarried, not married to a man. And that was the main reason I was persecuted in that life. That was kind of that was a huge deal to be 27 and a woman not married to a man. So that basically, in the eyes of that context, made me wild, made me feral. And to that I say, thank you. And I'm trying to be as wild and feral as I can now. But at any rate, I digress. The past life memory I uncovered, I was actually burned at the stake. And two of my animals actually, were also attached to me. One of them was a bird, though, so she was able to get her foot free and flew away. And that was no great mercy because she watched me and the cat who was strapped to my middle perish. And on looking, this were my parents, and the person who was my father is the person who is my husband in this life. And one of my animals, actually, one of my cats, who is in this life and was in that one also as a cat, escaped everything and eventually went and found my parents and befriended my parents. And that was, my parents knew that was my cat. And so it was a great comfort to them. Another one of my animals, who was a cat in that life and in this life, he actually just escaped to the forest and had to just live out the rest of his days that way. And so, I learned a lot from that. There's a lot of redemption in reviewing past lives. When I actually recovered that memory, it really was so informative about what was happening in my life because it was right at my awakening. What does that mean for my family? That was the big burden I was releasing myself from at the time, because it was a big shift in my life to go from, working in some kind of corporate job and suddenly to be open to all of this. And what does it mean? And what am I going to do to my family? And how's this going to turn out? And so it was very helpful. So that's something that you can do is, if you have animal family members, meaning what people usually say, pets. I don't like that word. You can use it if you like. I don't have any judgment over other people using it. To me, I'm uncomfortable with it. It feels like it's diminutizing. It's diminishing on the animal. So it's not my favorite word. But anyway, your animal family, they very likely, there's a good chance that you have past lives with them because they're a strong part of your soul complex. You have lived many lives supporting one another, and just the way anyone else in your soul group would. And even, it's like they are dispatched from the same oversoul. The intimacy is so deep with our animals. It's like parents with their young children, and yet it never shifts to a greater autonomy as, when a child actually becomes an adult. Not that a parent ever loves their child less. It's just that the intimacy is always really heightened with your animal family, right? You can review a past life with the intention of one of your animals and seeing if they were a character in that life. Now, one thing that I get asked a lot is, do animals reincarnate across species, whether between humans and cats or dogs and cats and, all that kind of thing. And to that I say, I think anything is possible, and that I definitely would never put myself in the authority to say absolutely yes or absolutely no. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that even makes sense. What I will say is that in my experience of working with animals as an animal communicator, animal telepath, is that it often is the animal will tell me about a life that is the same species or a similar species. And so a cat being a cat, but maybe a cat being a wild cat or like a lion, you know what I mean? Like it might be a similar feline family, or just cat, domesticated cat. I've had a tortoise talk to me about being a salamander and a snake. And, so it's not exactly the same species, but it had a similar theme of being an earth dwelling, earth elemental, devoted animal. And then I've had dogs show me, like a small dog who's been a wolf or some other larger dog or a wilder canine. I've also had animals tell me that they were different animals. So as to whether they transmigrate, animals or humans transmigrate to their soul energy to be incarnated as other kinds of species, I'm just going to say, yeah, I think so. But again, I'm not going to put myself in that authority to say absolutely or absolutely not. But I will also say that I think the reason that we have themes like a cat telling me about other cat lives, maybe he's been a million other kinds of species, but it's really relevant to the cat to recall another cat life. You see, it's relevant to this life. And that's the point of past lives, is that they're being recalled because they're relevant, but they're relevant in a way that is beneficial. And so it's, of course, really important for us to realize that when we recall a past life, we aren't recalling a past fright. Even though that scene was really, dramatic, it doesn't mean it's going to repeat itself. It actually means this is a pattern that you have released, and here's a heightened example of it so that you can release it. Identically to a dream. It's identical to the way dreams come into us. I'm not saying it is a dream. I'm saying that if you dream that your partner is cheating on you, I mean, yeah, sometimes it's an intuition that they're actually cheating on you, but usually it often just means that you're feeling insecure about something, or that you want to vent out an old insecurity that is no longer a part of your energy pattern, and you're just seeing it as it's leaving. Well, past lives are definitely that way. Energy patterns that are that are old and antiquated in your soul history, but they're here now in this imagery to inform you about how to heal from it, almost because you have some objectivity to it. Because I'm no longer in a context where witches are persecuted, at least not in Burbank, California. So this is a very magical practice that you can work with your animals. You can talk to your animal about it. And I know many people think that maybe they're not able to talk to their animals telepathically, but you are. If you go into a meditative state, you invite your animal to be a part of it. You can even just speak it directly right to your animal before you go into meditation and ask them if they would like to be a part of this recovering of a past life where you may have been together. And setting the intention that it's going to be valuable content to inform you about the evolution of this here and now. And just be open to what shows up. I mean, if your animal doesn't want to be a part of it, it's always important to ask permission to work with your animals in any way, magically, work with any magical or spiritual practice with them. Ask their permission to, if they're in your home, you're already talking to them. But anyway, ask their permission. And if they say no, that's okay. It just may not be the right aligned time. If they don't show up in that past life imagery, which you will more sense them than recognize their faces, because they're going to be a different incarnation, then possibly if if that's how your clairvoyance shows it up for you, then, that's okay. It's just a part of a process. And maybe whatever life you recover at that time is important to prime you for another life. Bringing your animals into your past life reveal is so powerful because, again, of that intimacy. So they're going to be able to show you a really intimate part of what's going on in your life, a really profound, deep inner plane working, because that's the kind of relationship you have with your animal family. So you can work with your animals in the past life review. You can work with them in a lot of ways. They do probably already meditate with you. You might think they're napping with you, but they're meditating with you. You can ask them if they would like to be a prayer warrior like my Delilah. And then you can also ask them if they would like to hold space for you while you're doing some kind of magical practice. If for you that's affirmations, or if it's a ritual work, or if it's anything along those lines. I actually ask my animals to support me when I'm going to do client work as well. And they hold space for me, they meditate, and they just take care of me because they are so powerful. They are so spiritually powerful. Another inspiration for this video today is a podcast that I just recorded today, but it's not going to be released. I think it's going to be released in a month or two. I'm not really sure, but I want to shout out the podcast anyway, because I had such a great time with Hannah, the Suburban Witch. She's on Instagram as well. I will link that below. Check it out because she's got some great content on Instagram and with this podcast that's coming out. And then, if you're subscribed to her, then you're going to eventually hear my episode as well, because we talk about animals and we have a beautiful and long conversation. All right, everyone, another shout out about the Witchcraft workshop. Check the link in the description if you want to kickstart your magical practice with the ancient, beautiful craft of spirit and nature together. Also, please like, subscribe, share, and comment, and click the little bell so you can get notifications about when I post more videos. And of course, the podcast, the full-length podcast going into animals as your familiars and animals in your spiritual practice. That's what I have for you today. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.